Hey everyone, John Hayden with Al Ferguson, who finally is not reporting to us from Tel Aviv. He is in Amman, Jordan, where he waits, but he waits in relative safety and comfort. Al, this is the video I've been wanting to make for nearly a week now. I'm so glad to see you and not have to worry about interruptions.
John, I'm so happy to speak to you again. So many of my friends that have been contacting me. My brief and one and only stint in my entire life as a involuntary wartime LGBT correspondent comes to an end, and I'm very happy that it has come to an end. While I'm still in limbo, I am not in the conflict. I'm not listening to sirens go off 3 to 5 times a day. I'm not listening to the phone alerts. I'm not moving to bomb shelters. I have never been so keenly aware of how wonderful not being attacked by missiles has been, and that is in Jordan. I've talked to many people, by the way, John, today in Jordan. I've just so many people asking me questions about what we went through and what went on, and a very common joke. It's true, but it's a very common joke told by the Jordanians that they could see attack on Israel. You know, has close proximity to Jerusalem, about 90 minutes. And that instead of moving to a bomb shelter, they went outside to watch it. And it's kind of a funny joke because it really is. Where you stand is the perspective of what's going on in this war. And if you're standing in Tel Aviv, your perspective is completely different than Amman, Jordan, which, is not very far away.
We weren't in contact yesterday. I now know that
Why?
it was my hopes. I was hoping you weren't in contact because you were in transit, and of course you were. But yesterday was a very long day. Didn't you say it was a normal 14, a number of 4 hour journey took about 14 hours yesterday?
It took 14 hours. We got short notice. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it was a joint operation between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Tourism of Israel. We got short notice of what was going to happen. We had an unmarked black mini van for the 10 journalists. We left at 6:30 in the morning to be at the West Bank boarding border crossing into Jordan. The our personal representative that's been with us through the entire stay said he had never been to that border crossing before. It's mostly for Palestinians and Jordanians. Israelis don't really use it. And we left very secretively, very early in the morning. We left at 6:30, basically, before there was much movement in Tel Aviv. They took a travel route that was not the beaten path, let's say that. We got to the border crossing a little before 8 o'clock in the morning to cross, and then all hell broke loose. There were literally thousands of people trying to get out of Israel, buses and cars, people walking that had walked to the border to get out, and the Jordanians trying to manage passport control. Just think about crossing a bridge. I said to several people, it reminded me of Gone with the Wind, as I told you in the scene when Atlanta was under siege from Sherman. It's what it reminded me of. We were there for it to go 1 mile. It took 8 hours, and the system is just completely overwhelmed. If you are not able to get through, there are people living in their cars and living in a bus on the hopes that when, because of a short period that the Jordanian border crossing is open, that they can get through and get into Jordan. It was just incredible. And then I sent you a video. It was a clandestine kind of situation where we had a Jordanian vehicle and representatives from the Israeli embassy in Amman and a security vehicle following us. And just to surprise,
While you were still in Israel or after you had gotten across the border?
no, after we got across the
Okay.
border in Jordan, and the process of most of the journalists were scheduled to try to get out last night. Only two of all of them were able to do that. And the only reason they were able to do it is because they got through a little earlier. They didn't even wait for transportation. They paid a taxi driver to take them from the border crossing directly to the Amman airport, and they were able to get out with no luggage. They left their luggage behind, and the other LGBT journalists, all from different countries in Europe, that stayed with us as the Americans. Um, they all missed their flights, and some were accommodated with what our plan was, and it's just been bedlam here, and it will continue to be bedlam for a while. The
When
news about
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
news about Donald Trump, by the way, is there's no one in Jordan or Israel that is not talking about Donald Trump. He is the number one topic in both countries. And what are the Americans going to do? What are the Americans going to do? Are they going to attack?
Mm.
And the ramifications of what the U.S. is going to do next is on the front of mind of everyone here.
I have a question, backtracking a little bit. Obviously, Jordan and Israel do have diplomatic relations, although they are, as we all can infer and you know firsthand, they are tedious. They're convenient alliances at best. When you did you have to walk across the border, or were you allowed to, did your
Yes.
vehicle get to go into, or did you have to change vehicles once you got on into Jordan?
We had to get off, and our black our black Mission Impossible van. We had to get off of that. We had to keep our luggage with us. They collected all of our passports, and we had to go into a building where Jordanian security was managing passports. And when I say manage passports, they were grouping up passports 10, 12, 20 at a time, moving them behind a glass border control and trying the best that they could to review passports. You've traveled internationally, Joan, you know, of looking at who these people were and people yelling and screaming and pushing. And it was just absolute bedlam. One of our passports were lost. We were inside border security with just our passports for probably 2 hours just to try to get our passport back. The application of a visa and processing the visa live as we're standing there. It was just absolute bedlam. So we have left our Mission Impossible vehicle on the Israeli side, and then we must walk across the border through the border gates into Jordan for a separate Jordanian vehicle that had Israeli security with it. So it's uh, when I say we've had PTSD, I'm not exaggerating in the slightest. This has just been an experience unlike anything of my entire life in traveling was this experience.
You know, this is Thursday afternoon here in South Florida. It's about 11 o'clock in Jordan right now.
Yeah.
You're gonna sleep tonight, and you're gonna get a full night's sleep. Perhaps it's not your own bed, and you're still wound up. But this is the first night in a week that you're going to be able to sleep relatively stress-free. Has that impacted you? Is that something you're going to realize, appreciate more when you wake up in the morning? Um, Tell me about just the sense of having 80% of this burden off your shoulders now.
John, the uncertainty about getting home from Jordan pales in comparison to the uncertainty and the concern and the fear of being in Tel Aviv. Um, I I will go to bed tonight and wake up in the morning, and tomorrow and overnight, as we're speaking, you just said it's approximately 11 p.m. here in Amman, Jordan. 5 hours from now, 1 week ago, the attack on the Iranian nuclear site took place. In 7 hours from now, 1 week ago, Tel Aviv Pride was canceled, and the first missile attacks started on Israel. And every day since, this Tel Aviv experienced, I watched Iron Dome send off missile after missile after missile after missile. I watched it happen. I watched ballistic missiles come in from Iran and hit in central Tel Aviv. I'm shocked to say that I'm numb, but I am numb, and all of us are. Um, uh, uh, I won't say this has changed me forever, but I think maybe it has changed me forever. And I have traveled the world. I sent you a video of what I did today here in Jordan. I finally, for the first time, I broke down crying because I realized I was out of this conflict. And that makes me very happy, but it simultaneously makes me very sad because of all of the LGBT people that I've met in Israel that have a strong front. They keep, they make the English joke, keep calm and carry on, and that's what the Israelis do. That's what the LGBTQ community does, and I won't have to do that starting tomorrow morning. But they will wake up and a missile attack warning will force them into shelters, and it will continue and it will continue and it will continue. And so I'm suffering this feeling of PTSD and also feeling guilty that I'm not in it anymore. And it's a difficult thing to process. Yeah. My one of our
I
co
am fortunately out of questions because
I
the danger, I mean, it's because you're in a better space. And
yeah.
as opposed, yes, yes, you're in a better space now. And I'm so happy, Al.
Yeah, I am too, and I've had so much support. I got a message. I got several texts from Michelle Visage, for example, and Michelle's message. Her father's Jewish. I've traveled with him many times. I told her I thought about her father. He is passed now, and I said in the text, I just had no real understanding. I knew what this region faced. I knew what Israelis faced. I knew what LGBT Israelis faced, but I really didn't understand it. And one interesting thing, John, I have to commend you. And I have to commend why what you're doing and talking about what's going on here is important. The vast majority of the LGBTQ community is not doing this story. They're just not. You pick up, if you look at the news feeds of many of our most respected and our most wonderful LGBT outlets in the United States, they're not talking about this story. And the reason I honestly think they're not talking about this story is they really don't care about this story. They don't really care. You reported on the LGBT center's feelings that they've been abandoned
Mhm.
by America. And, it's really hard for me to not come away from this when I land back in Fort Lauderdale and Welton Manors to go, yeah, I think that that's true. We're not talking about this because I really don't think we care about this nearly in the way that we should. So I commend you because you've kept it front and center. And there is a lot of issue over Israel,
Oh,
and there just is, and it was not as clear to me as I think it should have been, but it is crystal clear to me now. I'm coming home. I appreciate the support. I'm extremely tired. But at the end of the day, I think I will be energized to say that we have LGBT in the world that are completely suffering. And
oh,
Israel is a place, and Ukraine is a place, and Hungary is a place, and and we have obligation to think about our communities in other places in the world that don't have it nearly as good as we have it in Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale.
I don't, no shade. I mean, I'm so grateful to the Israelis for working with Jordan to get you out. But you mentioned Michelle Visage. If RuPaul had been in charge of evac, you would have been home on Sunday. She would have worked and gotten you back here.
John, a funny story. I sent you some pictures on it. When we were going through this catastrophe at the border, 8 hours to cross for 1 mile. When we were going through it, I have not seen a single person from the State Department. I have not seen a single person from the U.S. Embassy in all of Israel, not a single person. I never saw the embassy in Tel Aviv is not open. I was told to send an email. Okay, well, I didn't send an email. Thank you, Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Tourism. I'm in Amman tonight because of them. When we got to the Jordanian border, is there any American presence to help Americans get through the nightmare that's going on the Jordanian border? No. You know who is there? The British government. And I sent you some pictures. They're wearing yellow vests that says um, uh, British embassy or British government, something along those lines. And all they're doing inside of the Jordanian border crossing station is the first thing they did to me is they walked up to me, one of the representatives from Britain walked up to me and handed me a granola bar and a bottle of water. It, I almost busted out crying that somebody from the British embassy was there and they didn't care I wasn't British here. And then they helped us with the nightmare that's going on with passports and the crowds and the Atlanta is at the end of the Civil War mentality that's going on. The British Embassy is completely organized, completely on that border, helping not only British citizens, but European and American citizens. Where was my embassy?
That
Where was my State Department? Where was my Marco Rubio? Well, they're not here. That's where they are.
I'm not sure waking up and seeing Marco Rubio standing over me saying I'm out would necessarily ease my anxiety any, but sure.
Okay, well, your joke's better than my joke, so I'll just stop.
Al, I love you. I am so glad you are safe. We will talk again. Hopefully, we will talk again tomorrow on Friday, and we will have your exit plan from Amman laid out. But
Yes.
until then, Al, sleep well. And I say that unironically this time. Get some
Yeah.
sleep, enjoy, and we will talk tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you very much, John, and to everybody in South Florida. So many people that have sent me well wishes. It's greatly appreciated because this has been a lonely, isolating experience that got better, a little bit better, because of the people who reached out to me. And I'm so appreciative of it. And of course, you're at the top of that list.
Thank you, Al.